Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video we will see how my session 54 went. So it's both things, it's a session recap and it's also and foremost a GM prep recap. So we will see what I prepped for session 54, what was useful, what was not useful, what could I have done better. And for those who are following the story of my campaign, of course, I will also do the recap of the story. But just to change things, I think I might inverse the two. I guess a lot of you don't really care about my campaign or the stories, and they just want to have the tips, the GM tips, the insights about the game. So I might as well start with that. And during this session, we were on the island, the Crystal Isle. It's one of the first scenes of the Wrath of the Warden module of the campaign, the Throne of Thorns for the game Symbaroum. And they were, when we started session 54, they were confronting an old crone, an old witch on a magical island in the middle of an underground lake. And around this witch were 30 or to 40 wraiths, naked, undead, swollen bodies of the beast clan, warriors that died defending the beast clan and that were put to rest in this cavern and that have become undead because of the influence of this crystal isle. So that was the opening scene. So if I start with the takeaways, because I just want to jumble things up. This time I want to start with the takeaways and finish with the recap. So for the takeaways, I think I want to talk about the infamous big boss battle in Symbaroum that are so hard to organize that the game isn't really well suited for. Those battles tend to be really quick, and the big bad bosses, if they're alone, tend to die really fast. So I will talk about how the plans that I made to try to make this witch survive a few rounds, how did it turn out? This is my takeaway. I almost completely failed at what I was attempting because of one little error that I will tell you in just a sec. But before I do so, I want you to notice this new superb microphone stand that I created out of a bottle of Calvados. So Calvados here that was given to me when I went to a film festival. I put my little microphone on it, just for fun, just to try something out. I think the sound is better. You can tell me in the comments. And I'm drinking today this gluten-free beer, Glutenberg. So I suggest that you take one too, or you can drink very good non-alcoholic. There's mocktails. There's all sorts of stuff now that you can drink without alcohol and that go beyond a Coke. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to have trouble putting the beer in this little frozen cup here because actually it's warm and I need to slowly drip it. Okay, so I'll just wait for that. So let's start. Let's go. Let's dive right in. First thing I'd like to show you is that's the aisle, but I would go to my prep. And my prep, as you know, I always try to prep for 1 hour for each 4 hours of play or for each session, more or less. So this is what I had for this session. 2 pages of text. This little timeline here is just copy-paste from older stuff. It doesn't count. And I wanted to open with Bayela's living nightmare on the island. The wraiths slowly appear. All of that I played. And what I had decided to try to give her a chance is to give her the teleport. Did I write it here? That's funny. So I at least I told you so in my last video. We can see that Bayela has teleport novice, and she has, what did I give her? That's all, I think. For her, that's all. And if you look at teleport, what it does basically is that she can pass a resolute test and teleport to somewhere in her line of sight. Yeah, and she can flee basically. She can disappear and not provoke free attacks against her and appear elsewhere. So what I did during that scene is that when things started to get tense and that the characters were starting to take some defensive positions, the specters were appearing. So what I did for that is that she was in the middle of her wraiths here, and most of them are not visible. I had hidden them like this. So I had all my wraiths coming up to her because at the end of session 53 she called them up, and they were just moving slowly. And what I like to do when we're doing a game online and I have the players role-playing with this witch, I'm role-playing back, and when these creatures appear, I just turn on some tokens as I'm role-playing. So we're not in a round mode yet. So at some point the players notice, oh shit, there's something behind her now. And these wraiths, I had given them bodyguard novice, so they could give her a chance if she was attacked right away. The ones that were around her would protect her. But what happened is that the characters, when they saw that these specters were appearing slowly around in multiple directions, they instantly thought, okay, we need to obey her and we need to get out of here. Because as you can see, the map is kind of a labyrinth. The green parts are the parts where you can more or less walk on more or less flat ground. Down here, under the big crystals here, there's like it's not a pit, but it's like a little, you slide down and you climb up the other side, and it's pretty hard to climb up because it's really smooth, so you need to run up. So they need quick tests to get out. And they were seeing that more of those wraiths were coming from the back. The witch started cackling and laughing at that point. And I had Kullinan Furia in the mix, and in the book they say that Kullinan will attack her to see what she can do, but of course he didn't do it right now because that would be too dangerous. So he was thinking, okay, I'll do something as I leave, and he didn't get the opportunity to do that. So basically what happened is that they retreated, they went down in the hole, they went up. That was pretty hard, and the wraiths were coming in, so we moved into combat mode. The Templars lit up their swords and got their swords out. So what I did is that out of round, when we're still role playing and it's starting to get tense, where people can do action, stuff you would do normally in an action round, in a combat round, but you can do them as you're role playing because you're preparing for something, and so can she. So what she did is she just fell upon herself with her big. She had like a fur on her back. And she just disappeared into the fur and reappeared at the top of this crystal there. So she got out of direct attack, at least she thought, and they were not being hostile to her right now. They just said, okay, we just want to leave. Could you tell your specters to not attack us? And she was just laughing, and it was a bit confusing, and so they were running away basically, and she was laughing some more. And when finally they got to this little gully here, it was really, really narrow. It was something like more of like 5-6 meters. So it's pretty wide, but when there's specters in front of you, you're a big group, you're trying to run past each other. It was a real choking point, and all these specters were coming in the back and specters were coming up front. So I used the suggestions of the book that they would be in combat against a certain number of those specters as long as they kept moving away. So you see that they've killed quite a few. They've killed like 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 as they went through. But all this battle was super tense because they were moving away, and some people were lagging behind. The mages made 2 firewalls here to contain the wraiths. I decided that the wraiths, their goal was to just push them out. Basically, they would of course strike them and cause strong damage because they are attracted by this warmth. But the witch didn't tell them to attack. And so What I did actually is when they were going by wraiths near them, I would roll resolute checks for the wraiths to see if they could obey the witch and resist the urge to go get some warmth. And so a few of them attacked them as they passed by. And I don't know why players always want to stop and fight when that happens. It's like, it's incredible. You can count on that. They will stop and waste rounds, waste movement, just to hit back while you're getting surrounded. And it's obviously a really bad idea to stop. And nothing is stopping you from just running further away. But you still do it. And I describe these wraiths as in the book, that they're really slow, they're not, super aggressive yet. But still, they sort of got bogged down to fighting some wraiths in this little gully. And more wraiths were coming in slowly. And Bayela was laughing. And the fire was burning. And at that point, that's where I almost killed my big, bad, evil witch. Again, I almost fumbled this encounter because I forgot to send a spirit up near her. And well, as she was at the top of this crystal, she was visible. So of course, one of the mages threw a brimstone cascade at her, caused 6 points of damage, went beyond her pain threshold. She fell back on the crystal. At least, it's like an angle. So she fell down on the other side, so they couldn't see her anymore. So that saved her, basically. That's how I saved her, because if she had stayed visible, she would have been completely destroyed. And I was thinking, oh, man, how could you forget that? That's so obvious. You gave her bodyguards, and you didn't use them. And she felt safe at the top of her crystal, which I guess is good role-playing. I mean, she did feel safe, and she underestimated the opposition, but that almost cost her her life. What's great about this isle is that as she was still hidden at the top of this crystal, the next round she just stayed hidden, and she used the power of the isle to completely heal herself. Because she can take 1 point of temporary corruption and get a d4 toughness back. While she was doing that, of course, the idea here was to really get out, which they finally succeeded in doing. They crossed the 20 yards of water, or 20 meters of water, and they got to this map quite wounded. There was a lot of people took a lot of strong damage during those exchanges. These wraiths are one of the most scary and dangerous foes that they had to meet up to now. It's really incredible that that this experienced group of adventurers actually has sort of met their match. Yes, the Templars with Blessed Shield could burn them a bit if they attacked and stuff like that. But these wraiths take half damage when they are attacked, so they're quite tough actually. And when they hit you, it's 3 points, ignoring armor. So that's a major thing. It was a very scary scene. I really went in the descriptions of hypothermia, of this damage sort of freezing you to your core, as if they're plunging their hands into your chest and holding onto your heart with cold fingers and stuff like that. And so they left and they crossed this little peninsula here. And I want to stay in takeaway territory here. So I'm GM tips and ways to run encounters. I'm not doing the recap yet. So what I did in that portion, I was just using positioning, free attacks when characters went by the enemies, stuff like that. When their pain threshold was or if a crit was rolled or stuff like that, I would make the wraiths lose some actions, and the rest it was really the situation, the number of enemies, the terrain, the lighting. So it was very, very tense for the characters, and some of them could have died easily. So it was, once again, it was a successful encounter in the sense that there was a goal that was different interesting. This, in this case, was fleeing the isle, managing the tactical aspects of how do you dodge a horde of specters in this kind of crystal labyrinth. So that was, I think, a fun challenge for the players. But strangely, when they got to the other side, they just stopped right there. And they started talking, what do we do? Started healing. And I was just describing, that they're still in this huge cavern. There's this weird vibration and humming from the isle. I had a few of them that were standing guard that specifically told me, I'm checking, I'm standing guard. I had them do some vigilant checks to try to see if something was coming, which they failed. And they knew they failed, and they did nothing. It's just, I think I have a group of players that is really anti-optimization. I think that's the thing. So that's why I'm well off as a GM. This game can be really, really quickly broken if you have heavy optimizers as players. In my case, I apparently don't. I'm lucky. I have, I have fun players that are really into role playing, that can have some tactical acumen, but there's a limit. They sort of don't go to the next level. So in this case, I had these creatures surround them again from north and south, and I did the same thing I did the first time, where I just brought some specters, climbing on the shores, appearing, and at some point with their light, they saw that the creatures were coming in again, but they were close at that point. So we did some chase rules, and what I did is that I divided this area in sort of just 3 areas, or 3 or 4 areas. I was basically just creating increments by which you're getting away, and you need to be 3 increments away from the pursuers to be declared free. So every turn everybody would roll quick, and so some people would move to the front. It would just spread out, and I was always asking, are you staying with the slowest character, or are you it's just like everyone for themselves? And basically they were just fleeing in a jumble. Of course, the slowest characters being Mikariol, a fire mage, and a few others, they got caught, so they had to do a round of combat. In that round of combat, Mikariol would raise a firewall, and that would sort of give them one increment, one free increment to flee. So the chase would take again, but they would be at 1 increment of the enemy. So they had one round to move further away. They had 2 rolls. If they failed those 2 rolls, they had to fight again. At some point, the faster ones, a few of them went back. It was like the takeaway for this is that it's the chase rules, but it's not exactly the chase rules. So we're in the world of rulings, rulings versus rules. I'm really strong on rulings. I really like to do rulings. I think that to have a game where you can do rulings on a regular basis and keep some kind of coherence to the game, and not make the players feel like you're just making up rules all the time, and that it's not necessarily in their favor. And when you do the rulings, you need to have a good handle on the rules, and you need to create this kind of baseline of how you approach things. It needs to feel fair every time. That's really important. And in this case, Symbaroum is a super simple game, because everything is just a test, where you just test against an ability, an attribute, and you have a modifier. So either the modifier comes from the enemy or from circumstance, but basically that's it. And then you need to decide if you're going to give a favorable roll, so 2 chances to succeed, or a disfavored roll, 2 chances to fail. And also there's advantage in combat mostly. So it's really a few little items that you have to affect probabilities, and that's it. That's all you need. And yeah, so every time you need to sort of see what the narrative is, see how the players are interacting with the narrative, what they want to do, consider what their characters are, what they're wearing, what their their personality was, or what their previous roles were. Like, did they get some momentum? Did they do some flashy stuff? You need to sort of take all of that into account, and then you can decide on a modifier. And of course, there's like, for a lot of things, it's just the modifiers will always be based on the situational circumstances, and that's it. It's just sometimes you have social roles, or intimidation roles, or maybe knowledge roles, where it's a bit more fuzzy. It means that the narrative being the dialogue between you and the players, and say, okay, like, you want to roll to know if you know this knowledge there. Well, what in your background or your abilities would justify this? And so there's a little discussion, and very quick, and you just have the player pitch to you what he thinks, why he should know, or at least why he should have a chance to know. And then you just decide if it's okay or not, if you put a modifier on that or not, and you have them roll. So it's very, very fast, and that's a big strength of a game. If you're an active DM and that you're confident in your means, it's really easy to handle and to get those rulings out really fast. So in this case, that's what I did, and because I didn't want it to become a slog, it was more fleeing of the same wraiths, and I sort of told them, well, you brought this on yourself. I mean, I didn't want to have a second round of battle against the wraiths, but you just didn't really play it well. But we had a few new elements that was interesting. There was the guards, the town watch guards, with the sergeant trying to keep them in line. They did their formation a couple times. I had some rolls to see if they were going to stay disciplined, and so it was interesting. There was a bit more tactical elements there, different tactical elements, and so they killed 5, 7, 10 more. So they killed 17 out of 40 maybe. So almost half the wraiths. And they were thinking at the end, well, maybe we shouldn't leave. We should finish the job. Of course, when they were thinking that, they were back in the bigger cavern, and they were ready to step out. So if I go back to my prep, and I do my prep recap evaluation, well, the first part here, the Living Nightmare, that really worked. This, we didn't get to do the Oracle. They didn't talk to her enough. So there could be some more of that here that would come later. She did use Dominate. That saved her life. I don't remember when, but there was a moment where she got attacked. I think it was Mikariol, yeah. The round that she got the Brimstone Cascade, that was from Kullinan. And Mikariol wanted to burn her again, and she succeeded in having him hesitate. I think it was that, something like that. The bodyguard wraiths was a total fail. I completely forgot to always keep some close to her, so that was stupid of my part. All this rendering here was not really used, actually. Just Edogai. That's the only thing I used. They went to see the Templars. We'll talk later. So a few things here were used. I did not use the Night Cape Assassinates Wild. I did not. I had an opportunity to use it, but it was too quick. It was too quick. It was straight when they got out of the sinkhole and they went back to the shop before starting their sort of investigation. It was just too close to the start of the sinkhole scene. I mean, the sellswords need to hire this lady, so it was just too fast. I want maybe a day or two to go by before they do their move. So I had this for next session already prepped up. The angry crowds, that didn't happen because they didn't get to them yet, but it will happen. Here I had, that was inspiration for another scene that I will talk about, where Beau did some investigations and talked to a goblin. And I used sort of the spirit of what I wrote there, but in this scene where it was Beau going to meet some goblin and not the reverse. So you see that you can always you can always recycle what you prepare to adapt it to what's really going on. The crystal isle, I sort of detailed a bit more, but I didn't get to use it. I did use the friendly presence. I did have, during this whole scene where they fled the isle, at some point I asked all the magic users to roll resolute -8 against the demon. And those who failed sort of started to feel this warmth and this something nice and benevolent, and the isle stopped feeling hostile and dangerous and scary. It became like a nice homely place where they could settle. So it was just a beginning of an influence, and it has the added benefit of explaining why Bayela wants to stay there. She's under this influence too. So yeah, so this little bit got used. So I think I'm really happy with what I prepared and the way I used it. I think it was pretty efficient prep, and I need to be even more efficient because I have even more work in the rest of my life these days, and I need to continue on this great super efficient prep. I really need to keep doing that. So I hope that the way I do it will give you guys also some ideas to maybe optimize the way you do your prep, to try to bring the hours down, because we all have our lives and things to do, and the fun part is the gaming itself. I mean, the prepping is fun too, but it's not as fun as the actual game. So the more the prep is compact, the more games I can GM. So yeah, so there's that. So I'm hearing, oh, this is my cat. Okay, I've got a cat here. His name is Ariol. There you go. Look at this little nice little cat. Oh, 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 oh. He's 1 year old. He's the name Ariol comes from a very good children's book from France. And I'll just put him back inside the house. So, because I'm still in my man cave, and it's getting cold here in Quebec, and I have a little heater that I turned off because I want to have good sound. So yeah, so here I am in a freezing remise, having this beer with you. So cheers to you. Have a little one, and we'll go to the recap. Let's dive into the recap. I'll try to be quick since the takeaways were a bit long, so I won't go over the details that you already know for this recap. But I can say that on this island, the ingredients that I used that were pretty efficient and that were really fun was the fact that first they were scared of the wraiths, and I knew that they would be so because they had so much trouble against 2 wraiths in the forest. So 30 wraiths or 40 or whatever was super scary for them, so they really wanted to flee. The second element was this warmth, this weird warmth from this place with the failed resolute rolls for the mages. So that, of course, they were really they weren't trusting this at all, and so they just kept fleeing and didn't want to go deep there. The next step was when they were near, starting the battle in the gully. I think it was one of the mages who used witch sight or something. I don't remember the exact detail, but I used metagaming to increase the tension. I told this player that he felt that this isle with this magic, friendly magic, was open to a connection, like an artifact, that you could bind to it. And then I went ahead and told them what the isle would do. And I think I have it here. Do I? Yeah. So the Crystal Isle has quite interesting powers, especially as they were starting to be really under pressure with the wraiths. You can augment your success rolls and all of that. So I showed them this image, And I told him, of course your character doesn't know the specifics that well, but you get the idea. He feels this power that he can tap into, that he can use. And you as a player have this option. You can bind to this isle. And I wanted to go this far into metagaming because metagaming is not always bad. In this case, just describing this link, this power that you can tap into, and keeping it super vague was not, it's not attractive enough for a player. It's just like, okay, it's some narrative dangerous shit. I don't want to go there. But if you actually metagame and show what the player can gain from this, then there is a real temptation to bind. And that's an interesting aspect. So metagaming is not bad. When we're young, sometimes we're dreaming of this perfect immersion where the GM takes care of all the rules and the players just role play and imagine and everything is behind the screen. And that's like I don't know, it's a funny dream that many young GMs have because they think that this immersion will make it more fun for the players. Well, actually, this is a game and players like to know the rules and they like to play the game. And as GMs, we need to be able to see when metagaming is bad, which is most of the time, but when it's useful sometimes, like in this instance. Because sometimes you need to pass on to the player a knowledge that the character would know, like in game, like in world, but that's really difficult to translate into words and be convincing about it to a player. So in this case, I could have described the magic in many ways and used cryptic phrases to try to describe these effects, but why do that? I mean, if the goal is to hint at effects, like you feel that by tapping into the power, you could heal your wounds. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, if I tell them you can heal your wounds, you'll roll 1d4 toughness for each temporary corruption you take, then the fact that I'm telling him the rule that's I'm going to be applied makes this option a real option for the player, and it makes it tempting. So metagaming is really good to create tension, get players thinking a bit more tactically sometimes when you need them to. Beast lore lets you check out the stat block of a creature you're facing. I really see the use in that because the player sees the stat block, and if the stat block is scary, the player will be scared. If it's not scary, he will not be scared. And that is what the beast master facing a beast that he knows would feel like. Like if it's a very dangerous beast, he will be tense. If it's a not dangerous beast, he will not be tense. So I'll just shut up on that. You get the idea. But I used that during this scene. And so they left the isle. They fled with all that pursuit that I described earlier. They went back to this cavern, and they went out and they met with Marvillo, and we had a whole half session of roleplay, and that was great because I think it's two sessions and a half at least of fighting since the sinkhole opened. Yeah, it was really intense gameplay. They loved it. I asked them how they felt about those sessions of fighting all the time and all of that, and they really liked it. Every fight was different. There was things to do. There was, and they have characters that have better powers now, so they really liked it. But we were eager to get some roleplay down because things were becoming too abstract. The problem with tactical play in combat all the time is that you lose the personality of the characters. I mean, of course you can put some personality in combat, but your turns are, it moves slowly around the table. Yeah, it's not conducive to really expressing the personality of your character as much as real roleplay scenes. And so you start to forget after we play every 2 weeks, so 2 games and a half, that's more than a month. So you get a bit hazy about how the characters are, what their personalities are, how they interact with each other. it becomes more and more hazy. So we were really happy to play some good role play. And what we did is that they talked to Marvello right here. Kullinan wanted to keep the finds as secret as possible and to have a quick emergency meeting at the Order Magica to try to control this information and the access to the Isle as much as possible. He already was thinking about the political fallouts of that. So he told the players, okay, let's go have a meeting, just the mages, and let's decide something real quick. And so they sent Le Demé with the other Knight Templar to Night Home to do the official report to the mayor. And while that was happening, they went to the shop of Edogai, right here. And they decided to, have this little discussion with Kullinan. And I decided to not have the plot of the assassin right now because it was too early. So they had this little discussion. Kullinan was really adamant that we keep this on the wraps as much as possible. We'll try to have some official backing, and we need to go back down eventually. Edogai went to his office and looked at the pearl from Anadea's pockets. And the pearl, the Mind Stone, of course, he failed his roles to try to understand what this artifact was, and he decided to bind with it just to know right away. He's that curious. And so he did, and he communicated with the elf, Teara, Teana, or something like that. In the book, they say that this elf should not respond, that you should just feel this presence. I sort of didn't understand why she would do that. What's the danger to her? And I found it a bit boring. So I decided that I would move the story forward a bit faster. So he went in, in this trance. He took 7 points or 6 points of temporary corruption. He was like, oh shit, that's horrible. And he appeared in this kind of a tunnel of stone with overgrown with vegetation. In the darkness beyond, at the end of the tunnel, 2 eyes glinting in the darkness, a silhouette, and this feminine presence that was answering him. So he saw something. I just put some images there. And they had a little exchange. And I just unraveled everything. I don't know if I should have done, but that's basically what happens when they walk all the way to the Hall of Tears in the printed book. That they learn that this is the head of Eox and that blah blah blah. I just found that it would be really lame to have that wait so long, and they found Anadea. They know who she is. The only thing that's left to find for her is the key to the storage, and in the storage, the Meerkat, and the Meerkat is just the way to go back to the Hall of Tears. So it's not essential. I mean, the real mission is to find Erlabert and get rid of him. Going to the Hall of Tears is just an added little fun trip. So what I decided is that she will tell them that it's Eox's head, because why not? And she asks what happened to Anadea and blah blah blah. And I did ask for, that's where you ask for persuasive rolls, and he made a crit. So I gave them the crit. I said, okay, he convinced her that he is trustworthy, at least that he probably isn't the assassin. And so she's going to try something with Edogai. And so they got a bundle of information, but of course no idea of where this head is. But now they know what it is. And she told them, you need to get it out of Thistlehold as soon as possible, because in 5 days it's the new moon and the god will die. And that was total luck. I that's really funny because I said 5 days is in the book. I said a new moon because I wanted something special to happen there. And look at our calendar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was so happy when I checked it afterwards. That was pure luck. I just said 5 days, new moon, and there it was. So, and it's funny because as we were playing, one of the players checked the calendar just to check it out, and he was thinking, wow, man, this was well planned. And it wasn't at all. Anyways. Okay, so once that was done, they said, okay, our best guess is to know who came in the town lately. Who, it's an expedition. They will have come back. What we did is that we played different, the party split, and they did little scenes across Thistlehold to try to find information on a troop of fortune hunters that came back in town that would have a big black box, because that was the vision that Teara Teana had. And so they devised a few strategies to do that. They split up to try to find information. Lodome went back to temple to talk with Elfeno, see what the plans were there with the authorities. Beau went to the salons of Symbaroum because that's the big tavern, more than a tavern, brothel, games, everything that is next to the northern gate. So he wanted to see if the staff there had seen anything. Edogai and Melian went to the Abomitorium to talk with Malmedo, the main hunter and handler of beasts in that place, to see if there was maybe some hunter friends that were hired or something like that. And there was a few side scenes too, like just backstory stuff. Like Melian went with Irizin to meet Agdala because he wants to have a witch mentor. So I had a nice scene there with Agdala. Vilde went to the tower to talk to Cornelio, Kullinan, Gonkai and company. He failed his roles. He's a pariah. So they asked him why he's there, why Edogai, his master, isn't there to partake in this discussion. And they decided as an Ordo Magica group that the further investigations in the Isle should be conducted under their supervision, that this question of this head of a god, this source of corruption, should be investigated by the PCs secretly, as to not make anybody else panic, while the authorities were concentrated on the sinkhole. There was a little scene with Mikariel went back to the academy to see Elsbeta and to see how things were going there. Everybody was traumatized. The academy is closed for now. Elfeno and Lodome met. That was a nice scene too. Elfeno asked Lodome when her Templars that are supposed to come in reinforcements, when are they arriving? And he basically told her, this is a time for you to prove your worth and to make us forget the somber killings that you did in the forest, that really bad situation with Cargoy Salamos and Serexatio and all that. So the pressure is still on there. We also had a scene with the Templars at the Winged Ladle, and I used the map of the Winged Ladle. I have it here somewhere. I showed the image. They went in. They sort of just discovered a bit of the place, and they met with the Templars. And basically the Templars said, well, since the tablets aren't the source of corruption, you don't need to see them anymore. It was pretty funny because I think they didn't expect that. But Edogai was really good on his persuade rolls, and he said, well, maybe I should still see them and just make sure that there aren't some bad enchantments on the tablets that could cause trouble for you. And they accepted for that, but in a few days, because they're very wounded. So it's pretty cool that they're wounded, because that's what the book says, and they actually got wounded while fighting with the PCs when we were playing. And I'll do a future video on my house rule for healing, and you will see that when you get large wounds in my game, it's a bit longer to heal. And if I try to wrap things up, I'll just go quickly. Maybe not in the order, but the idea is that all these scenes, these little quick scenes, were very fun, smaller scenes of pure roleplay. So every player had the spotlight literally on him for at least one scene. And the fact that the party splits makes subgroups that are smaller, so it creates different personality dynamics. Having all the players and all the characters together at all times, as we tend to do because we want everybody to be participating, actually sometimes has the reverse effect, because the players, if there's 6 players in a scene, they can't all talk at the same time, and usually 1 or 2 will do most of the talking and the others will just grumble in the background. So they're not actually participating in that scene. So having scenes where you take away some players and their characters from the group and put them with other NPCs, and sometimes one-on-ones like between party members, that is super interesting for roleplay, because it sort of forces the less talkative types to really own some scenes. It will help them get some confidence, and it's really fun to watch for the others. And you just need to keep them, short, tight, to the point, and it's actually not a bore at all. So we had this scene here with Beau and the goblin from the stables at the salon. So he gave the goblin a few shillings. I used what I had written, where the goblin is wondering why does he talk like that? Why is he dressed like that? Why is he like a human? And I also, when they went out of the sinkhole, described this army of goblins that suddenly appeared to build the palisade. So I got the goblin lore in a bit. And that reminded the player that, oh yeah, there's a goblin village nearby, I should go. And they had a good talk, and this goblin told him that effectively he saw some people come in a few days ago, and that they left to this area of town. So he got a lead there. There was also it was Edogai that went to see this captain of the guards here that I created on the spot, and he wanted to see the book where they note where who comes in the city and all that. And there was nothing written in the book, because this guy was bribed to not write anything in the book. This guy is a corrupt official, and so of course Edogai is not very, he didn't notice that might be the case, so he just offered him a ton of money to gather all the information from all the other gates and bring that to him at his home, which the guy gladly accepted to do. So there was a lot of good character building in those scenes, and it was a very nice breath of fresh air, of fresh role-playing air to end this session 54. And I was really happy that it ended like that. So next session 55, I don't know what will happen, because they're in investigative mode. So I will have to figure out things like, how long do I want it to take? How hard is Erlabert going to strike back? What is the link between the prince, Erlabert, the sellswords of the sun, the different cultists that are in the town, Blackmore? A lot of things I have to sort of pre-imagine. I have to write those 2 pages. So well, first of all, I tell you, please watch my next video where I'll be doing just that. Please leave me some comments in the comments right here on the video. If you want to have any of those maps that I made, or I did some dungeon alchemist maps too. There's like the dungeon alchemist file that I can share. There's many things I can share. If you want those elements, just comment. It really helps the video. Give a like and subscribe and all that, and I'll send you the files, no problem. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can go to Drivethru RPG, check out Playing with Goblins. It's an adventure I wrote, and there's a goblin village in there. There's some rules for a long-term chase in the woods. There's some pretty nice stuff, and I'm planning on writing the second part. I know it's been a while, but it's still in my notes. It's just that my life is hectic, and this is a hobby for me. It's not my main job. So yeah, so please head on over, check that out. give me a thumbs up, and I'll appreciate it a lot. I'll leave you guys with a little cheers. In these pretty intense times in our real world, I hope that you can gather with friends. You can prepare some nice role play for them. You can play some nice evenings of gaming, and keep it light, keep it bright as you play, but keep it dark and gloomy in Davokar. So see you next time. Cheers.